Hey, how you doing? This is Schooler Channel here. This is a 1995 Ford Ranger pickup. Many models, many years, fit the same parts. I just wanted to point something out. My shifter. Sorry, a lot of sun behind me. I'll try to. Shifter's got a lot of slop. You have to keep rocking it to get it to grab the right gear and everything. And so I looked online, and way down underneath, you get underneath the dash and look back this way towards the wheel, and there's a bracket in there with two Torx bolts. They're T30. They're they're T30 size. Two Torx bolts. They're gold color. I'll show you what they look like. I'm not going to get underneath there, but they look like this. You'll see these two heads of these, and they were loose, so that makes the shifter a little loose. But I tightened them up, and my shifter's still wobbling. You see the shifter shaft? I'm going to try to get this where. Well, the bracket's off right now. There's a bracket goes over this. It was still super sloppy. So I took all the covers and parts off, all the bezels and everything around the column. It takes you about 10-15 minutes to get all that stuff off, and then it just kind of pops out of the way. And what I found is over the top of the column, there's this little half round like aluminum bracket. And it's got two of those same gold-headed T30 screws holding this bracket on. And I noticed that's where all the slop was. So I assumed this was worn out because it's aluminum. Try to get some good light here. That's what the bracket looks like. So I look underneath, and if you look at the color of the metal, it doesn't look like, it's still like factory finish. So I'm like, I thought maybe it was rubbing and worn out, but it's not worn out. There's actually almost no sign of it rubbing. Well, that's the top half of the cradle, so I figured the bottom half might be worn. But then I noticed, you see this? It's a little black plastic, like bushing. It's got a little split in it for how they slip it on over the shaft. And this bushing, it looks like it's supposed to have a little, like a little lip at each end. And then that clamp goes over the top of it. And the two little high spots on the ends holds it in there. Well, it looks like the lip, I had already turned it around. I took it off. That lip that was on the top side was gone. It was worn out. Because when you shift this, you're also going up. It's going in and out when you pry the shifter. So what had happened, that the top lip had worn off, and this bushing had worked its way out from under that saddle. And so, let's see, that saddle, hard to see. The saddle bolts like right there and across over here, or right here. See that hole? The saddle goes right here. You see the slot. Well, without the bushing in there, you had let's see that. Let's say this bushing's a 1/16 of an inch thick, so that's 1/8 of an inch on each side. So there's an 1/8 of an inch slop in there. So I was able to pry this thing off gently without breaking it. And I turned it around so because gravity's trying to push it down that way, which is what it had done. So I turned it around so there's got this shoulder, this lip, the shoulder, and I'm going to lift up on the shaft and slide it into place. Sorry, it's hard to see. So now this is where this saddle goes right here. And I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to take this saddle, put the saddle back over it, make sure I hook that shoulder properly, like just in front of the saddle to the high side, and then screw it all in. And I believe that's going to take the slop out of the shifter, I hope. But I just wanted to point that out because I haven't seen this online yet. This is a 1995 Ranger, but it probably fits most of the 90s and early 2000s Rangers are probably similar, I believe. So that's another, if you have slop in your shifter handle on an old Ranger, just take all this column plastic stuff off. It's pretty easy. You use like an 8mm, 7mm sockets, and a couple T30 Torx, and just a lot of screws, and about, I don't know, 15 minutes to take it all apart, and then flip that bushing around. If yours is, hopefully it's still there, but be careful you don't break it because it's got a split in it. You got to gently pry it off of there without breaking it. And then so I'm going to do that all, put that all together, and if it takes most of the slop out, we'll just assume this works. I might take another video later to finish this video up. If not, if I don't add anything to this video, then that means it fixed the slop in the shifter. So just wanted to post that for you, and good luck with that, and over and out. Bye. Okay, I'm back. Same job. Okay, so here's that saddle. It actually, I slid that, like let me get some light. There we go, better light. I slid that plastic bushing back up on there and made sure the shoulder was on the top side of this clamp, this saddle clamp. I tightened that back up. I actually put a little silver anti-seize in there because it's just like a it's like aluminum shaft and like aluminum saddle, and then a little plastic bushing. I put a little just for a little lubrication, and then when I got that, it tightened it up probably 80%. Took 80% of the slop out of that shaft. But then I noticed way down in there, there's one more of these saddles, and this one I don't think the bushing, I couldn't see where the bushing came out. Actually, you can see it there. The bushing looks like it's squeezing out. There's like a pile. See the pile of plastic in the corner down there where it's been wearing away? I think that one is probably just completely worn out. I had to drop the column. All the column was four of these 13mm socket, 4 nuts up underneath, 4 brackets. I was able to drop the column, and so I'm going to pull this saddle off, and it looks like that bushing's wore out. I'm sure you can't buy that bushing, or who knows. I might have to see if I can make one. I'm going to take it apart, and I'll give you an update in a little while. Okay, I'm back. Alright, you can see it right here. It's hard to tell, but because, sorry, there's a lot of, it's the evening sun. You can see that area where the saddle clamps crossed. This is what that plastic little bushing looks like. It's supposed to have a shoulder here and a shoulder here, one on each side, and that saddle goes across and holds it in place. Let's see here. The other one seemed to not be worn very much, but it had just, the shoulder had worn off, and gravity and pivoting had made it, it had fallen out of the saddle, so it gave it that much slop, the thickness of that. Well, that one I just reversed it so the shoulder was on top, so it can't come out. And I just reversed it, and that took care of the slop up top. This lower one, from that shaft pivoting, you see it, I'll get you close up. See, that's the shaft wants to do if there was no bushing as you're shifting. So what had happened, if you look down in there, there's a pile of black plastic that has come off of this bushing. Sorry, the evening sun again. You see the bushing just wearing away. This one was in, it wasn't slid down because it was still, the shoulder was on the high spot. The shoulder's worn off the low spot on this one. Just how that happened, I guess. But it is worn thin. It's worn quite a bit thin on this area, giving it a lot of slop. And see, it's just a little flexible plastic. Obviously, you don't want to break it, but it's pretty flexible. And then it just snaps. You fit it around that shaft, and it just snaps into place. So what I'm going to do is take up some of the slop. Now, you don't want this tight because you don't want it grabbing that column, the shift column. But I am going to take up the slop. How the best way I think I'm going to do it without trying to make a whole new piece somehow to get the right material, whatever. You could get like some black, like plumbing plastic or something, rough diameter, and shape it and grind it and fit it and do all that. But this one, I have to get it over here. Try to get you some decent light. This Scotch Super 33 electrical tape, it's the perfect width. So basically it's probably 3/4 inch wide. What I'm going to do, I'm going to cut strips of this. You have to leave this open to get it back on there. There's no way to get this on there and wrap it constantly around the way that shaft. I'd have to take the whole shaft and everything apart. I'm not, I'm already in too deep anyway. So I'm going to cut strips of this and wrap it semicircle, several layers, and fit it in there and feel to where it just kind of gets snug, but not too tight where it binds. And that's how I'm going to take the slop up. Hopefully that works, and hopefully I'll end this video in a little while. Thank you. Okay, so what I end up doing is using approximately 3 pieces of tape, about this long. I lightly wrapped it around that plastic bushing and just trim the ends to match the size of the bushing. And what I ended up using was 3 layers of this electrical tape. And obviously it would vary depending on how worn out your bushing is. But you also got to remember, you don't want to put too much, because if you make that thing too tight, it's going to grab that shaft and it won't want to turn. And also, that little aluminum saddle, it's really thin. If you got too much in there and you clamp that clamp down, you're going to crack that saddle. It's going to snap it, and then you're really screwed. Then you're really going to be making something homemade out of that. So I went with 3. It seems to be good so far. I got it down. I put it in there. Also, I wanted to point out that tape is going around the outside of the bushing, and the shaft, the bushing doesn't move, really. The shaft just slides on the inside of the bushing. So all you're doing is closing up some of the gap around the outside with the shim, and so that tape won't interfere with the shaft movement, because the shaft moves inside the bushing and the tape's on the outside of the bushing. So right now I have that in there, and I got the top one back on. Remember these T30 Torx? When you're putting it on now, you're going into aluminum, and this thin little aluminum strap, you want it tight, but you don't want to get crazy. You strip that out or crack something, then you're really gonna have a problem then. So I got a nice little snug torque, click with my wrist. Another thing to point out, I wouldn't go after that back one unless you're extremely mechanically inclined. If you're a novice and you're not really sure what you're doing, you can maybe do this front one. The back one, you got to drop the column down. You got to be careful not to break any wires or cables. And when I took this saddle off and this saddle off, I was able to wiggle the shaft a little bit and get that bushing out. But to get it back in, I wiggled the shaft a little more, and the whole shaft went pop. And when it popped up, a bunch of the mechanisms all got out of whack. And so I had to put the key in it and put the key to like accessory mode and I spent like 10 minutes jiggling this thing up and down and sideways to try to get everything lined back up, because the shaft wouldn't go back into the saddles. It's like I let springs out of a box, you know what I mean? Now I'm still not positive it's right. I've got the clamps back on. I'm going to lift the column back into place and try to shift it through gears, and if it seems like it's working, then I will hook the battery back up and make sure the column and everything is working properly before I bolt everything back up. So that's where I'm at right now. But so far, if you look, there's no more rocking in that shaft. And I don't think it's too tight, but I'm gonna check it and I'll let you know in a few minutes. Okay, I got it wrapped up. Everything's working. So check this out. This truck it's a 1995, excuse me. 1995 Ford Ranger. It says 161,000, but that was broke when I bought it years ago. This truck probably has well over 200 something thousand on it, I would imagine. We don't know how long that thing's been broke. Okay, so I got it all together. Now this thing, to put it in any gear, you would have to pull it and jiggle it back and forth and get it to finally grab that gear. To get it in reverse, you'd have to let go almost to park, back to neutral, almost to park, and then wiggle it, and then it would finally grab reverse. And to get into park, you'd have to get up there and wiggle it back and forth, and then it would grab park, and then it would dangle almost at the reverse area while it's in park. And you see that moving now? It's solid. Well, used to be that needle would move both sides of the P almost all the way to the R when it was shut off and parked. And it was hard to find gears. Which also, I think this thing was getting a weird draw on the battery. I think the shifter might have been leaving the ignition switch that's on the column. It could have been leaving that somewhat engaged or something. There was a drain on the battery for a while. That was strange. But then I noticed if I took the key out, see if I wiggle the key, there's a little slop in that key lock too. It's been replaced, but if you wiggle the key some and then jiggle that, then it seemed like it would kill the truck. So now, not bad for a 30-year-old truck, little four-banger. We close the door, get the dinger. No dinger. Now look, I'm gonna shift it. Boom. Look, I'm gonna wiggle. See the shifter? No slop in that pointer. Before, that pointer would be moving all over the dang place. So it's in reverse. Click, perfect. Let go of it even. Neutral, no slop. It's in neutral. Drive, crisp. Second, crisp. First, that needle don't move. Nice crisp upshifts. Crisp D10 on the neutral. Go look at, watch this from drive. Okay, we're in neutral. Foot's off the brake. Straight down. Drive. Straight up. Neutral. I'm not even pulling it towards me. No slop. No slop. Slightly pull it towards me, obviously, to get it in reverse. Perfect. Boom. Look at that. No more slop. And it's nice, like I said, I used 3 wraps of tape around the outside of that one bushing. And the other one wasn't really worn, it had just fallen out. And I slid it back in, it didn't even look worn. And it didn't feel worn when I tightened it back up. But the other one, I got the slap out of it with three wraps of tape. You might need less or more, but remember, you don't want it so tight, because right now the 3 wraps, it's just firm on here. It feels like something like it was brand new. Just a slight drag, slight stiffness. You don't want it so tight because it's just going to grab that bushing real tight and wear it right out. And you don't want any binding on that shaft. So 3 was fine. I wouldn't go like any more. It would have been too tight on this one. So that seems to all have worked. So I'm going to shut it down. So this shifter, 30-year-old truck, is like brand new. No more slop in the column. Everything works. All right, to do this job, wrap it up. This is your OBD2 port, which is funny. It's a 95, but it has 96 OBD2 because it was a late year model. But they don't use it because the emissions won't. Well, they put it on the dyno because it's 95 anyway. All right. So to take a lot of this stuff off, 7mm socket. Most of the job, 7mm socket. 7mm socket. There's 3 screws under here to get this column wrap off. Those are 3 Phillips. 3 Phillips screws. You get the bottom off. You can't get the top one off until you get this upper dash off. The gauge cluster bezel. Okay, so you take this off. Then you can take this off. To get this off, there's 2 screws, and then 2 screws in the hood latch. I just popped the hood latch. 2 screws for the hood latch, one here and one here. 7mm. You pop, and then it just pops off. 3 Phillips here. Take that off. And then there's 3 screws up under here. That takes the 7mm. Then you have to pull this radial bezel. There's 2 7mm screws here. You snap that out. Then you can snap this. I think there's a couple screws under here you pop out too. There's a metal, like a crash plate. There's like a metal plate under here. It protects everything. That metal plate, you use an 8mm socket. Take that. There's like 6, 7 screws on that. Take that metal plate off with 8mm. So 7mm socket, 8mm socket. Then you pop this all out. Once you get this out, you can weasel this one out of here and get it over the shifter to get it out of your way. And then, if you got to drop the column, a 13mm socket. And all those little screws, they're number T30 Torx. Like I said, I didn't show it, but they're up underneath the dash. You look back at you this way, they're about this far apart. There's 2 gold T30s on the back of the shifter, and those get loose. And that'll take some of the slop out. You can find that video on YouTube. Someone else already made a video about that. But like I said, to get the rest of the slop out, I had to work on that column up here. And then you just slap it all back together and double check it and make sure everything works. And like I said, don't take that back saddle out and move that shaft up to get the stuff in and out unless you're mechanically inclined, because everything popped out when I moved that shaft. A bunch of levers and junk moved out of where they're supposed to be, and I really had to fill it with the lock and jiggle it around quite a bit for a little while, and finally got it all back into place because it wouldn't go back together. So only do that front one unless you really know how to figure stuff out when it doesn't go back together. Other than that, it seems to all be fixed. And this is my 30-year-old Ranger in the upper Midwest in the Salt Belt, and it ain't rusted like at all. No, it's got one little dent there. Somebody ran over a rock or something. This truck is beautiful. I picked this all up. This was Stanley's truck. He passed away about 20 years ago, and his wife sold it to me for $1,000. It needed a lot of work, and it's nice now. So over and out. Schooler Channel. Bye.